So I had other things to do today. I was going to play more Starfield, I was going to finish Paper Jam, but Nintendo apparently decided that I was actually going to be making a video instead today, so here we are. For those who aren't in the know, Nintendo had their usual September Direct today, and honestly I wasn't that excited for it. The Switch is getting pretty up there in age, Nintendo just released one of their biggest titles ever in Tears of the Kingdom, and the rest of the year was looking pretty amazing, so I was pretty sure that this was going to be a dud, and for the most part it kinda was. There were some cool announcements. F-Zero 99 looks wacky, Princess Peach Showtime actually looks great, and some of the DLC shown off looks pretty good too. But overall, it was a pretty mediocre Direct, mostly just a, hey, remember what we showed off in June sort of affair. But there was one announcement that shook me to my very core, and of course, it was their One Last Thing announcement. As soon as that book showed up and that melody played, I knew exactly what was happening and I basically collapsed. If you haven't seen my videos on them, I'm a massive fan of the first two Paper Mario games in particular, so I really wish I was at home so I could have recorded my reaction. I was basically tearing up and hyperventilating. I've wanted Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door to get some sort of recognition from Nintendo for so long that seeing it before my eyes felt fake. Like at any moment it'll just cut to Toadette being in Fortnite or something. There have been rumors of a Thousand Year Door remaster being in the works for a couple of years now, but I never believed them. I was certain that any mention of this game in a leak was proof of that leak being fake, because how could it not be? For the last decade or so, Nintendo has basically done everything to trample on this game's legacy, intentional or not, and it really seemed like there was no chance of any game, new or old, returning to that style of game that means so much to me. I honestly thought that Sticker Star HD would be more likely than Thousand Year Door HD, and I guess that just goes to show how pessimistic I've become with this series, but I don't think it was entirely unwarranted. But I guess I've got some crow to eat because they actually did it, and I really couldn't be happier unless they just dropped it and released it today. I've watched this trailer over and over for a while now, trying to see everything there is to see, and oh man, I've already got a bunch of things to talk about. Honestly, the first thing we need to discuss, and one of the things I'm most surprised by, is how it looks. I've thought about this happening a lot, and in all of my pondering about a Thousand Year Door remake, I always thought that one thing that would definitely change is the art style. You know how when the Mario and Luigi games got their remakes, their art styles got changed to match the more recent games' looks. It's cheaper since they don't have to make as many new assets. It's easier since dev teams can probably use the last game as a starting point, and that seemed like the Nintendo thing to do. So I figured that if this game was going to be remade at all, it would basically just be built on Origami King's skeleton, using as many assets from that game as possible, and anything new being retrofitted to mesh with that game's design philosophies. But no, it looks like it's a remake built from the ground up, and its art is entirely new assets made with the original art style in mind. The world isn't entirely made out of super realistic cardboard, the characters don't have that annoying white outline that Color Splash introduced, and most importantly, all of the original character design is entirely intact. I was super worried about that as well, since if you aren't aware, there were quite a few unique characters in the Mario and Luigi games that got generified in their respective remakes, and the character designs in Thousand Year Door are about as far from generic Mario as possible without going full Super Paper Mario. But it feels like whoever's making it, as Nintendo hasn't announced which studio it is at this point, is treating the game with the care and respect that it deserves, bringing the game's visuals into the modern era while not sanitizing it or stripping it of everything that made Thousand Year Door look like Thousand Year Door. On that note, just a few small tidbits I've noticed about the overall visuals. One is that the sprites aren't entirely 2D like they were in the past. They're actually layered a bit to give them more depth than they used to have. That's a small change, but one that does make these already amazing character designs look just that much better. Changes to the UI and stuff look good too, being clearly different in a lot of ways, but still looking like it belongs in Thousand Year Door, unlike what we've seen from a lot of the Super Mario RPG UI, which looks a bit too bland in my opinion. And I really appreciate that the game isn't playing things too safe when it comes to the visual design, at least from this trailer. Like, it's not a one-to-one remaster with just better textures and stuff. They seem to have redone entire scenes, like the blimp flying to Glitzville is entirely new, so I hope to see more things like that to round out the remake compared to the GameCube original. Also, the lighting is completely different. The original's lighting was very basic because it was a GameCube game, but this remake seems to be doing a lot more than that. Areas already feel like they have have more personality due to how they're lit. The shot of Hooktail at the end of the trailer in particular was gorgeous. But there is one thing that I'm a little concerned about when it comes to the game's visuals. Watching the trailer, I noticed that a lot of surfaces are very, very shiny and reflective for some reason. I'm sure it makes sense in some areas like Glitzville's foyer or the XS Express's kitchen tiles, but why are the roofs in Rogueport so reflective? It kind of gives the game an Unreal Engine 4 fan remake feel, and I do hope that is dialed back a bit. It's not horrible by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm sure I can get used to it, but it's just a little odd, you know? That style of visuals with basic textures and models surrounded by crazy effects and lighting can and does work in games like Octopath Traveler, but I think, at least on the ground in Rogueport and places like that, having a more flat, less reflective material would probably work better. Oh, and the trailer music, it was so good. It's all Thousand Year Door music aside from that first song, which was the N64 game's main theme, but they melded it with the modern Mario big band jazz sound really well. I can't wait to hear the rest of it. I'm already blown away, seriously. On the gameplay side of things, I don't expect much to change, which is overall good. Thousand Year Door is nearly perfect in my opinion, so changing too much would only really make things worse. But I do hope they at least make a few quality of life changes and modify a few features. Like, I'll be super disappointed if you're still forced to only take on one trouble at a time. There was no reason for that to be the case ever, let alone now. I also hope they include a proper hard mode for this version, as it wouldn't be too hard to make, and it'd give the game even more replayability in the future. Also, fix the lottery so you can actually win things, please. Aside from all that, I can't really judge too much yet, as it looks like Thousand Year Door, which is about as much praise as I can give a game. But, you know, things definitely could change. This is a Nintendo remake, and we all know how bad those things can get. It's weird to even say this, but this is starting to give me a bit of hope for the future of the Paper Mario series. I don't know if the music at the start of the trailer was a hint to a future Paper Mario 64 remake, or if it was just a reference, but even if it's nothing, the fact that Thousand Year Door is getting this treatment makes me think that Nintendo has finally started to listen to what the fans actually want out of this series, or I guess in general maybe. Now, I don't want to say that the next Paper Mario game is guaranteed to be Thousand Year Door 2 or anything like that, but yesterday I thought the chances of that were 0, and today I think it's not. And I feel like we'll probably learn whether or not that'll happen sooner rather than later. I have a feeling this Direct was probably the last one that we'll see exclusively focused on this Switch, and by February next year we'll have an idea as to what the Switch's successor is. And with a new console comes new installments in pretty much all of Nintendo's franchises, at least the ones they care about. Maybe, just maybe, in that first reveal we'll get an announcement for Paper Luigi The Marvelous Compass. Or maybe not. I guess I'm getting a bit too hopeful now. I should probably try to temper my expectations. Anyways, this was just a quick rant on the Thousand Year Door remake announcement. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope that you are too, since you're all required by law to buy it. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Bye.